Much of Andrew Jackson's tenure as president focuses on expansion, especially with regards to land and influence over the territory controlled by the United States. However, expansion was a common threat, not just with regards to land during Jackson's presidency. His election was in part brought about by an expansion of voter rights with regards to property ownership, and when he was president, he expanded presidential power. A little bit. Just a little bit. Jackson's policies, while in some cases popular throughout the nation, the Indian Removal Act for one, unfortunately, also contained some extremely divisive decisions that would set up a divide in the nation. Jackson, when he first ran for and lost the presidential race in 1824, set up a two-party system that hadn't existed since the Federalists disintegrated, enabling the era of good feelings. His policies with regards mainly to the banks caused massive inflation and tariffs to occur to keep competitive on the world market, which disproportionately affected the southern farmers, causing greater disparity between the north and south, though wage workers also suffered in the north. The divisiveness would only increase from here on out as the manufacturing north began competing with the agrarian south for both political power and influence over the regions now coming in as states to the Union. As the election of 1824 approached, the citizens watched as the first competitive election since 1800 played out, with the military hero Andrew Jackson taking on the statesman John Quincy Adams. Since the market revolution had caused many workers to now be wage workers in factories, using land as a voting requirement no longer made sense, as many white men did not hold land. For this reason, many states got rid of their land voting requirements. As a result, the 1824 election had more votes cast than any previous election by a wide margin. And Andrew Jackson won the popular vote 41% to 31%. The Electoral College, though, did not get the message, as they chose Adams as the winner. And afterwards, realizing how undemocratic the Electoral College was, they got rid of it. Wait, they didn't? Oh, America. Despite this disappointing first test of greater democracy, the election of 1828 turned out differently, with Jackson winning the presidency by so much the college couldn't deny him for a second time. This election also introduced a greater emphasis on negative campaigning, a practice that hadn't happened even during the election of 1800 when Jefferson and Adams competed. Jackson recognized, though, that he was running against the establishment, and to win, therefore, he needed the people to dislike the establishment and their candidate, Quincy Adams. Jackson tried to accomplish this by accusing Quincy Adams of being a weakling, and Quincy Adams returned fire, accusing Jackson of being a murderer. Both of these accusations are most likely historically true. Jackson therefore set up the Democratic Party during those elections, though Martin Van Buren really did all the work on setting up the party, giving the United States a two-party system that wouldn't be relinquished. The North, though, was unhappy with Jackson, especially his negative attitude towards most of the North's financial systems, especially the banks. As a result, the Whig Party replaced the National Republican Party as the main opponents of the Democratic Party, at least for a little while before the Republican Party would come and take the Whigs' place in the 1850s. Whatever political opponent did not matter, as Jackson had power, and he would soon be expanding the executive power even more, establishing the position as the most important democratically elected government position. Jackson became probably the first president to start really using the veto power of the presidency, setting the record for most vetoes by a president with 12. This political tool would become more and more powerful and frequently used, though with a dip as of late, as the younger George Bush vetoed 12 bills while he was in office, and Obama has vetoed 8. Compare that to FDR's 635, would you? Jackson, despite being supported by the southern states, trying to expand states' power, he actually diminished states' power. in one particular case. During South Carolina's attempts to nullify tariffs, he even got the military and navy in on the fun, asking them to forcibly collect the taxes if South Carolina refused. That was only one major limit on state power, though, as his decisions with regards to the Indian Removal Act and the charter of the Second National Bank helped expand state power. With regards to the Indian Removal Act, despite the Supreme Court and our old friend George Marshall siding with the Five Nations, which included another previously mentioned friend, the Cherokee, Jackson famously ignored this ruling. The removal itself, though, did not occur under Jackson. It is unknown whether he would have been better at supplying the Indians on their forced journey to Oklahoma, but whatever reason, he is still generally blamed for the disastrous and terrible Trail of Tears. As well he should, as he was told by Marshall not to do it, but ignored it on the basis that agreements with American Indian tribes were invalid since they shouldn't be treated as independent. When it came to the National Bank, though, Jackson continued his trend of favoring the states by refusing the new bank charter and focusing instead on smaller banks. The logic behind this move reflects preventing monopolies because increased competition increases market efficiency and thus fit very well with the market revolution before. But it came with one little problem. These smaller banks began printing money like crazy, which led to large inflation devastating many wage workers in the North and Southern farmers, and causing an economic crisis called the Panic of 1837. Some of that crash did come from improper land speculating, but still, this is the man we have on the $20 bill? Ridiculous. This panic brought even greater distance between the North and South, as the business North became increasingly anti-Jackson, identifying more with the Whig Party, and the South, who despite the whole forced tariff situation in South Carolina, continued to support the Democrats, supported Jackson. Jackson's legacy as he left the presidency, therefore, was a complicated one. In part, he increased state government's power by lessening certain federal systems' power, either by eliminating them, the bank, or ignoring them, the Supreme Court. At the same time, though, Jackson increased executive power more than any president before him, including Jefferson. His use of the military and navy to enforce taxes was a dangerous precedent to set, unless he was intending for potential tyrannical rule in the future from the president's office, which, thankfully, didn't happen. However, this is what the people, the white male people, that is, had chosen after democracy expanded. This was honestly much of the fear of the Articles of Confederation that brought about Madison and the other founding fathers to write the Constitution. But Jackson's expansion, though, was over, and not long after, forcing the Indians out to the west, the steps to begin settling the territory were in place. The west was the new frontier, and manifest destiny would not be stopped. Greater citizen power to displace Indians, greater transportation and communication systems, and ambitious people looking to leave the rapidly changing world of finance and politics behind was a recipe for the next stage in American development. I hope you enjoyed the video and that you learned something.